Hello gamers, welcome to Video Game News for Gamers Bay. I am your host, Mike TheZorch, and we're looking at a news story that popped up on the 31st, and a lot of news outlets have been looking at this and analyzing it. I wanted to give my own 2 cents into exactly what's going on here. Sony has, or is purchasing Bungie for $3.6 billion. Now, I wouldn't say this is in response to Microsoft buying Activision Blizzard. This was if it had been a big purchase, like say Sony trying to buy EA, for instance, that would be them trying to one-up Microsoft. What they're doing here is a little different. Now they're saying that they're going to let Pete Parsons and his current staff remain in charge. His current management staff remain in charge of the company, and they will be allowed to have their independence, and they will be allowed to remain multi-platform. Means that they're not going to pull Destiny off of Steam or any of the other platforms that they're currently on, or Xbox. Destiny's on Xbox currently. So they're not going to pull those games off of those other platforms. And any future games, it alludes to Bungie working on a new IP. There's been no official announcement by them. This is the first that we've heard that Bungie's working on a new IP, which frankly they need to, because game developers that are one-trick ponies really need to diversify a little more. And for too long, Bungie was a one-trick pony with Halo. They got away from Microsoft so that they could work on something completely new. They got in bed with Activision. Activision nearly ran them into the ground with their requirements. They got away from Activision because Activision just let them go, and they were on their own for a while, and now they're with Sony. Now, this could be a good or bad thing for Bungie and Destiny 2. If Sony embraces NFTs, which I've heard that they are seriously thinking about it, that could mean NFTs in Destiny 2 and other games. Or not. It could go either way. It's still very much up in the air whether or not these acquisitions are a good thing or a bad thing for the gaming industry right now. It's still too early to tell, because the ink isn't even dry on the Microsoft Activision Blizzard deal yet. We won't know the actual impact of this until these deals are finalized and those companies are under the umbrella of Microsoft and Sony. We won't know the actual impact. We will get some idea of where things are going, because these companies are going to be, as the deals continue to go through, as the FTC does their own thing to approve or disapprove or not approve these deals. I think the FTC is going to approve them. They have been fighting Nvidia over ARM. This is different. They don't constitute monopolies. Whereas while ARM is not as highly valued a company as, say, Activision Blizzard or even Bungie. I mean, they're a high value company. They produce the specs for the ARM processor. Nvidia owning them is problematic because that would give them control over ARM CPUs, which are used by everybody. Whereas this is a little different. So I expect the FTC will approve these buyouts, and then in the coming years we will see whether or not it it has a positive or negative impact on the industry. And the year is not over. We don't know if there's going to be any more big purchases. I mean, we started the year. The one other purchase that I had forgotten, the one that was pretty big before Microsoft bought Activision Blizzard, was Take-Two buying Zynga. That was the one that I had forgotten about. I had thought that it was Tencent. It wasn't. It was Take-Two buying Zynga. Zynga is a big. They used to be. They're still big, but they used to be the biggest mobile game developer. They used to be really big. I mean, they made Farmville. I believe they're the ones. Yes, they're the ones that made Farmville. But it's not. Farmville's not nearly as huge as it used to be. Candy Crush is gigantic right now. But so they're gonna let them keep their independence. They have just your basic blanket corporate speak statement about the community, saying that community is important to the PlayStation DNA, and that Bungie's community is important to Destiny too. That's your basic boilerplate corporate speak. Talking about making Bungie a global multimedia entertainment company. So, Destiny TV show? Cartoon or an anime, maybe? I mean, as long as they don't make it woke. I mean, sure. I mean, that would work. And it says here, it does explain here that shortly after Halo 3 ODST and Halo Reach, that's when Bungie left Microsoft, went with Activision, and everybody knows what happened after that. So, this is not Sony trying to one-up Microsoft. I mean, this could rattle Microsoft's cage a little, because Bungie did develop Halo for them. But this is more Sony gathering up IPs to try and compete with Microsoft, and the fact that they've been flirting with PC ports. They did Guerrilla Games' Horizon Zero Dawn first. That was released. That was really good on PC. Then they released Santa Monica Studios' God of War, which is an excellent game. I understand that Ghost of Tsushima is supposed to be next, and we might get Last of Us and Last of Us 2 on PC. There's been no announcements, but if Sony continues this route, we could see that. I'd love to see Spider-Man on PC, frankly. That would be just absolutely great. And the reason why they would do it, I think, for one, Sony can't compete with Xbox on the hardware side. Both machines are pretty much almost identical in spec. I mean, there's not much difference between them. I mean, a PC is a PC, and these two machines are basically a PC. They use an AMD APU, pretty much the same one, just the slight variations between the two. They have similar memory. They use similar SSD storage technology, very similar SSD storage technology. There's nothing actually very revolutionary about what Sony has done with SSDs on their machine. And it's the natural evolution of what PCI Express SSDs are going to be. And that's coming to PC as well. If you actually, on PC now. If you have PCI, it's a part of the new PCI Express 4.0 spec. So it's nothing that's super revolutionary that is Sony only. But it is a game changer to allow for much faster loading of data that bypasses the CPU. But it is not something that's specifically Sony. They did work with the hardware developers to come up with the spec, but you know, it's something that's a part of the PCI Express 4 spec. Anyway, as I was saying, they can't compete with Xbox hardware-wise. Before they could by saying, you know, we've got better hardware, we've got faster hardware. No, now the two machines are very comparable to one another, and so the one way that Sony's going to have to be able to compete with them is IPs. Microsoft has a ton of companies under their umbrella now. They have Bethesda and all the companies that they own. They have Activision Blizzard and all the companies that are connected with them. They have 343 Industries. They have I saw the list of all the game studios that Microsoft owns. They own a lot, and that gives them a huge portfolio of IPs for Xbox and PC, since Microsoft releases Xbox games over on PC. Therefore, it makes sense for Sony to want to port PlayStation games over the PC, because that's where they can compete with Xbox. That's where they can compete with Microsoft. And it makes sense, because that's the one area that Microsoft has dominance over them, has been PC. Because when it comes to the consoles, it's not it's not where they can really compete at. The same goes for neither side. They can get their IPs out there and get them into the hands of players, no matter what platform it is. It would be a good thing for both companies. It means more revenue for Sony releasing PlayStation games on PC. It means tapping into a much wider audience than what they would get with PlayStation buyers. The one area that they need to work on more is crossplay. Sony's basically was forced into accepting crossplay. They didn't fully embrace it. They require developers to pay a fee to connect their games to other games on other platforms. So they haven't really fully embraced it like Microsoft and Nintendo have. That's the one area where they need to work on it more. But this move was less about countering Microsoft's acquisition and more competing with them on not just the console side, where, as I said, they can't compete hardware-wise because they're so comparable to one another. They have to compete with IPs. They have to compete with game franchises, their titles. And Microsoft also releases on PC, and so if they stay just on PlayStation, if they don't release on PC as well, they're limiting their reach, and so Microsoft's games are going to get into the hands of more players. You're going to have players on Steam, you're going to have players on the Microsoft Store. don't know any who would actually buy games from that, but or any other place like Epic Store or anywhere where those games are being sold. That's a vast audience, and that's money Sony would be leaving on the table. And they were smart enough to say, hey, Microsoft has this audience that we are not tapping into. We're just competing with them on the console market, and they are making money hand over fist on PC. We need to tap into that as well. And that's what this move's about. It is giving Sony that more of a foothold on the PC side. And as I said, we're still a year or more out from seeing if this is going to be a good or bad thing. Now, there will be things happening throughout the year that will give us a glimpse as to exactly what this is going to look like later on. Already you have Blizzard making some changes. They are banning boost communities in WoW, and they are making cross-faction play possible. That's where you can play content with people from other factions and still win rewards for your given faction, from what I understand. I watched Asmongold's video about it. It's a fairly big thing happening with WoW. That was probably a Microsoft-influenced decision. Well, the two companies are still operating separately until the deal is finalized. The companies are going to make some decisions ahead of time before the deals are finalized to smooth that transition out. And they're going to make, my cat. They're going to make a few business decisions that are going to try and smooth that process out. And Blizzard doing this, getting ready to boost communities and doing cross-faction play is just the start of that. We might start seeing some changes with Destiny 2 because of the move, just because of the purchase by Sony. You know, some internal changes. So I'm going to keep an eye on this. I'm going to keep watching what's going on and keep you all updated on exactly what is happening with this and whether or not there will be any more acquisitions by either company. There's been a lot of consolidation happening in the gaming industry. Still too early to tell if that's going to be a good or bad thing for it. It's mostly been among a lot of the big AAA companies. A lot of independents are still very much separate companies right now. Anyway, I have been Mike TheZorch. This has been Video Game News. If you like this video, remember to subscribe and click the bell icon so you can get notifications for any new videos like this. Video Game News is a show that is released whenever there is any major news stories. It was going to be a weekly show, but I decided to change the format to cover big news in the industry as it happens. So you'll be seeing a lot more episodes of Video Game News coming in the future. Anyway, again, I've been Mike TheZorch. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.